Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at, well, a really significant legal battle happening right now in India's Supreme Court. It's a deep dive into this fundamental clash, between private property rights and the state's power to act for the quote-unquote common good. The
Mhm.
case is Property Owners Association versus State of Maharashtra. We're going to unpack the core constitutional question here, and its huge implications for you, really, especially if you follow property law or urban development.
Absolutely. And, this isn't just about one building or one specific law. It's really about defining the limits. Where does state power end and individual ownership begin? It touches on a deep constitutional tension, really, between individual rights and the collective good. It's a recurring theme.
Okay, let's get into the specifics. So the state says common good, property owners say rights violation. What's the actual law being challenged?
Right. So the focus is on the Maharashtra Housing and Area Development Act, 1976. People often call it the MHADA Act. And this act gives the state government power to, well, acquire old or dilapidated buildings in Mumbai. They call them cess-based buildings sometimes. These are older properties where tenants paid assess for upkeep. It gets complex. The idea is to redevelop these areas.
And that's where the Property Owners Association comes in, representing the landlords.
Exactly. They argue this MHADA Act goes too far. They're saying it violates their fundamental property rights because it allows the state to just take over their private buildings, all in the name of this common good.
Seems like a head-on collision.
It absolutely is. And it brings us to this really crucial constitutional question. Can privately owned property, these buildings, actually be considered material resources of the community under Article 39B of the Constitution?
Article 39B. That sounds key.
It is, and this specific question is so important, so fundamental, it got referred to a 9-judge Constitution bench.
Wow, 9 judges. That's rare, isn't it? Signals how critical this is.
Extremely rare, reserved for the most profound constitutional issues. So you have Maharashtra defending the act,
hmm
saying acquisition is justified under 39B for, equitable distribution. But the petitioners argue, no, private property isn't a material resource in that sense, and taking it violates their right to property under Article 300A and also Article 14, equality before the law. There were conflicting Supreme Court rulings before, which is why we now have this 9-judge bench trying to settle it.
Like conflicting precedents needing resolution.
Yeah.
So let's look at Article 39B itself. It says, the state shall direct its policy towards securing that the ownership and control of the material resources of the community are so distributed as best to subserve the common good. Okay. So the court is looking at, what, 3 main things. First, does material resources of the community even include private property owned by individuals?
That's the first big one.
Second, if it does, can the state then acquire it for redevelopment and point to Article 39B as the justification?
Yes, can 39B be the source of that power, essentially?
And third, and this is where it gets really interesting, isn't it? If yes to both, does Article 31C give that acquisition special protection? Meaning, can it be shielded from challenges based on other fundamental rights? Because 31C was meant to protect laws implementing principles like 39B.
Precisely. That immunity question is huge. And connecting this to the bigger picture, you can see the immense importance. The ruling will basically decide if the state's power to redistribute for the common good can override private ownership.
The implications are just massive.
Staggering, really. Think about urban redevelopment. If the state can interpret material resources broadly, it could mean faster land acquisition for infrastructure, for housing, maybe.
But potentially at a huge cost to existing owners and communities.
Exactly. What's the trade-off? This decision will echo through land laws, property rights, everything. It sets a major precedent, affects urban areas, rural areas, the very idea of what ownership means in India. It really makes you think.
Yeah. So where do things stand now? The 9-judge bench hasn't decided yet. We're waiting. But that core tension is clear. Defining property rights versus state power under Article 39B.
Yeah, the decision is pending, and it leaves us, and you, the listener, with a pretty profound question to consider. If private property can potentially be seen as a material resource of the community, how does that change things? How might that reshape not just our cities, but our whole understanding of what individual ownership means when balanced against this idea of the common good?